Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Cassinelli and I are talking all about CES 2021. It's going to be all online. How in the world is that going to be handled? Plus, a sous vide machine that is going to require a subscription service now. Whew, just the latest. As well as so much to learn about Google, including a smart display set of games and Amazon saying, look, we are not losing money on Echoes. All that and so much more coming up on Smart Tech Today. Smart Tech Today is brought to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? Well, LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Welcome back to Smart Tech Today, the show where we explain the exciting, the dynamic, and the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. I am Mikah Sargent.
And I'm Matthew Cassinelli. How's it going, Mikah?
That little eyebrow raised there at the end. That was kind of nice. Yeah. It's going well. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's quite warm here today, which it hasn't actually been. So for the Bay Area, we've been cooking up a little bit. But as I mentioned last week, I have a tiny little outdoor space. So I was enjoying that a little bit, which has been nice. And the automation worked. So the lights did not turn on during the day, which they did for like the first week. So
nice. For about 2 weeks, I had not been able to hear out of my left ear at all. I had some sort of Eustachian tube issue. And so it had just become, my middle ear had become completely blocked. And so my eardrum was not working properly. Therefore, I could not hear. And so there were days where I would wake up and you know that noise of like a mosquito flying near your ear and how annoying that can be? It was akin to that annoyance. It didn't sound like that, but it was akin to that annoyance where it was just this constant just modulation in the sound around me and this feeling of just this side of my head being full. And so there were a couple of days where I just I said sorry to my partner. And I said, today's one of those days where I just have to be antisocial. I put on my noise canceling headphones because that would help me not feel it and hear it. So I put on my noise canceling headphones and I just spent the day sitting in the bed, basically pouting while watching, Netflix or something. It was like, I just have to have, or actually most of the time I was listening to my audiobook. I just have to be alone and not talk to anyone because the moment I start talking to someone, I can hear that things are not right and feel that things are not right. But the other day I woke up over the weekend, I woke up from a nap and I was dizzy and I couldn't figure out why I was dizzy because that doesn't usually happen when I wake up from a nap unless I, sit bolt up or something and start running around. And then I realized that my ear was not clogged. And so I imagine it was sort of an inner ear
awake
thing.
Almost or something.
Yeah. And I think that, my balance, of course, reshifted because it's, 3 parts of you that it's your vision, your inner ear, and something else that all go into your brain calculating your balance. And so with my ear back in working order, my brain kind of had to recompensate to what was normal. So I was very pleased with that. To finally have my hearing back after so long
that's
of
good.
Not being able to. Yeah. So
I'm glad you were able to do something and pass the time at least.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness for the internet and the things that it provides. So talking about the internet and things that it provides a way to have conferences in a world where we can't meet in person. And in this case, we have found out, we have been told that CES is officially going to be held online. So there was a bit of a question of whether that was going to be the case. At first, CES was like, oh yeah, we're going to do 2021 CES in person, probably, maybe. But now officially, they've said, all right, no, we're just gonna do it online. And I have to tell you, I am already so fascinated by the concept of doing this show online, because so much of what CES, so much of the, I think, interesting stuff that comes out of CES is from journalists going there and looking for weird stuff on purpose or interesting stuff on purpose. And, you know, it's not necessarily the people with the biggest budgets for being able to market outside of CES. And so you go there and you find just these weird products that you normally wouldn't see if you were just looking at the coverage, you know, as a person not actually there in person. So this is, I don't know. I hope that it is going to be easy to find those strange products, but I know that there are a lot of journalists rejoicing in the fact that their companies are not making them go to this in-person event. But I'm curious how you feel, given that last year's CES, wait, was that last year? Yeah, last year's CES was your first CES.
Exactly. It is like the first, I mean, hopefully not my last CES also. Because people are like, get rid of conferences entirely. But I generally think this means to a lot of people, CES is kind of just like not happening, or they will have that type of news, but not. I mean, yeah, even just going, it's almost hard to describe, because it's like 10 different halls filled with booths, and you kind of just like wander around and try to find something interesting. And I don't think I found a ton that was super standout that would be impossible to find, but at least for me, I handed someone my card with my information on it, which you can't. Just doing that on the internet is like, who are you versus, I don't know, I got to have good conversations with people and sort of break that first barrier and just be like, I do a podcast about tech stuff. Like, so a lot of these things, even a story that we'll see next, I saw and got to demo before it was ready for production too. So that was interesting. And that's not the same as online. Like, I guess just giving people a heads up at that time, but not going to Vegas, I think, I mean, especially given the situation in Vegas, sometimes even just normally, I guess some people don't want to go to Vegas, but I mean, I like had never been before and went to CES and back. So like, it was pretty boring. Not exactly like a traditional Vegas experience, but that was not the point either. It's you're going there to be a nerd and check it all out. So I think it'll be fascinating seeing how they do it, and if they can replicate some of the abstract value that just comes from being there and around people. And I got to like meet up with a YouTuber or something, but I don't see any of that really happening this year. I guess it's kind of just, CES is already a bombardment of email, so I don't know how they're going to improve that part either, because the second that you sign up, you just get inundated with emails. So we'll see. I guess just maybe by then they'll have better digital events and exclusive cool things or something like that, because I think a lot of it does happen at parties too, or they throw a cool party and you meet somebody from the company there or something like that. So it's a bit of a mess. Yeah, like I was saying before, pretty much it means to me that CES isn't happening this year and it's happening next. It is hopefully going to happen again after.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder how. I know, we'll see how companies are kind of handling this and how they feel about it, because you are right that was a big aspect of it, are these little mixers and things that companies put on to draw in journalists and talk about, the products there, or the ability to network playing a big role in that. And so with CES being the way that a lot of people end up getting those networking things, I'm curious how the company, or the group rather, behind the CTA, Consumer Technology Association, is going to leverage its technological, know-how to come up with a way to continue to encourage that part of the experience. Because I can remember in years past, and they may still do this, but there's like an NFC card or NFC chip built into each of the badges. And so a vendor can scan the NFC chip in your badge and get your contact information. You can also hand out physical business cards and things like that. So is there going to be some sort of online exchange of information? Are they going to do Discord? Are companies going to have Slacks? You know what I mean? There's all of these different opportunities for ways to still do that networking. And I find that fascinating, just sort of as an external look at things and the breakdown of how that's going to go.
How to do like digital conferences that way. I did a little bit of that around WWDC, but it was more like people joining a room to talk to each other before a presentation happened. And I guess also I was just thinking, while you were talking, I was thinking about the cool part about CES that was less just big booths from Panasonic or somebody, but was the startup floor that was a lot of the more experimental ideas. And even, I think we've talked about some of them on the show, but like one that was attached to your drumstick so you could play drums, but over Bluetooth, it would make like the sound effects for a real drum set. And I don't know, like that was a little bit more novel, but there was an entire 2 floors of companies like this. So stuff, I don't know how small brands will grow bigger that needed this, because a lot of companies do get it a leg up, especially if they do a good job with their booth. And then, I mean, even like you said, CTA, the company that runs it, they charged $3 million for some of these booths, and now there's no booths. So what are people paying for?
Yeah.
Like, are they going to be able to afford the next CES is the major question.
Holy moly.
Because it's like you're always built on the assumption that it'll get bigger each year. And if it doesn't, and also no one wants to go back to conferences. It's like,
yeah, I mean, just think about how we just used to LOL at, conference crud. I'm getting it. What are you doing to prevent getting conference crud? And like now I look at that. Yeah, the sickness.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, isn't that scary? We used to just go and I'll use some hand sanitizer and stuff like that. How are we not always wearing masks out to these things? When I think back, I found a video not too long ago, a sped up video. What is that called? A time-lapse video of me walking through CES. And I just look at that now and I'm going, what was I thinking? Man, wild. It's wild.
I don't remember if I got sick in January. I'm pretty sure I didn't like immediately get sick like a lot of people do after those conferences. But I remember in March thinking, did I get coronavirus at CES and nobody knew what it was at the time? Like all that? I don't know. It's wild. It was freaky. So that is because like it's a whole it's one of the biggest international conferences in the world and happened just a month or two before that. So I don't think there was any. I'm sure we would have heard more about that, but close call, I guess.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, I'm definitely. Right. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad I got to go because even one of the products, I don't remember if we actually talked about this the other week, but Belkin's new Wemo Plug. I guess we did, didn't we?
I think we talked a little bit about it. Yeah. So we had talked they were going to come out with a new one that was smaller. And so you could fit, multiple in one plug. And so this one's officially going to be available for purchase as of, I guess it's out now. Yeah. You can buy it and get it, which is nice.
It's like $25, 3-pack for $50. These are, I think these, I currently can't even access 2 of my Wemos, so I'm not sure I'm on a beta thing. I always forget that, so that's probably part of it. But I've been having issues, and those have been around for 10 years. And the issue with every single smart plug is that it takes up 3 spaces for one thing usually, because if it's especially on a power strip, it'll stick out to the sides and you can't use it. So these ones are nice and little tiny ones, and the friendly people at Belkin gave me a demo at the thing, and I think they're also coming out with a charging, or their demo was a wireless charger where when you put your phone on the charger, it could send the signal to the thing. And I remember being confused at the time, but sounded pretty interesting. So these are always just great because Belkin is a super reliable brand. So it's like if you're going to be buying a smart plug, probably this is one of the ones to consider.
Yeah. I think it looks great. I still like my iDevices plug. They are always sold out of them. And so you can go to the website and you have to kind of sign up for a notification for whenever there's new ones, because they're always sold out of them. I just love the idea of the plug being on the side instead of on the front so that you don't have this huge wall wart sticking out. But for folks who have used Belkin's products before, the reliability of the Wemo system is quite nice. So yeah, and then the 2 for $50 the 3 for $50 versus the 1 for $25. I think that's a really good deal if you get 3 of them, because 3 of them can replace so many different things in your house. The video is kind of showing, hey, people have that fear that they leave the house and left the curling iron on or the flat iron on, and you're not sure. So you can not have to return home. You can just say, okay, I definitely know it's off. And then you don't have to have special light bulbs. You could plug this in, plug your light into it, and then you've got a smart light. So this is a great first step into the smart home because you can use the plug-in stuff you already have in your home with it, and through that start to understand the power of the smart home, which is always a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
There was another, so we're about to talk about another instance of releasing a product and then adding a monthly fee after the fact, like a certain smart home hub that we talked about before. And I just saw another instance of this where a company that makes it's a router system. So you've got your router, but then connected to between the modem and the router is a little sort of gateway system that's for kids, and it protects. It lets you set up different rules and stuff so that your child doesn't access bad stuff on the internet or things that you don't want your child to access on the internet. And so this one had these really great features where you could say, it's a sort of, what is the word I'm looking for? Incentive system that a parent might set up saying, if you do your chores, that's worth X amount of points. And if you do this, that's worth X amount of points. And then these points equal this much free internet time. And so there were these, systems that the parent could set up with that where it would be time-based. And then all of a sudden there was a fee, a subscription fee charged for it. And when the subscription fee went into effect, it deleted all of those rules that the parent had set up.
Wow.
Yeah. So that obviously annoyed the crud out of people. And now there's a sous vide machine that is doing the same thing. Mello's sous vide. And this is interesting because it's not a typical sous vide. When I think of a sous vide, I think of the ones that almost look like an immersion blender. It's a stick that you put into a water bath and it heats up the water bath. This is kind of an all-encompassing system where for $3.99 you would get the whole package, and you could cook your rosemary steaks and I don't know. I know Andy Anatko makes microwave burritos that he says taste better than anything he's ever had. But because the $399 was not enough to cover ongoing development of the system, what happens? Well, folks, we come out with $6 a month or $48 a year subscriptions and say, if you don't pay, then you don't get to play. And so, as you might imagine, people are not happy about that.
They do. They at least let people do it manually to set the controls of the sous vide using the app still. But I mean, this is just one of those products that is probably too expensive. The company gets like a bunch of customers and didn't really think it through. I mean, they quite literally have a deleted Instagram post on The Verge that's a whole speech about what happened to them, where they basically were like, basically, we didn't think this. We did these founders did not think of the future when they built Mellow version 1, and just the fact that all of their servers, the more customers they have, the more expensive it's going to get, and they don't have like a goods fixed cost system, and now they're selling it for $150. And if you don't pay for the subscription, you basically don't get any of the automatic features anymore. So there's also much cheaper products that can do it alternatively. So I don't think it's a great success for them in the long run, but at least if you do have it, they like tried to, I'll give them credit. They were like, instead of shutting down 2 years ago, we've tried to stay alive and let you still use the product, but it's still always a personal appeal saying like, I'm not dead yet is never like a, never encouraging.
We gave you an early break, but now you will pay.
I feel just bad. Kind of fascinating.
Do I?
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
I need to examine myself for a moment here. Yes, I feel bad for the human beings that thought that they could make it by just getting a pay up front. But I don't know. I hope that this at some point becomes a lesson that it's just simply not something that you can do. You just have to start out on the outset with there's a subscription service that goes along with this. And I think that it will make consumers more likely to be wary of the one purchase gets you everything that you expect kind of system. I know that with, Kickstarter projects or something like that, that would make me wary to back them in the future, knowing that at any point they might say, this thing that you had that has worked exactly as you expected it up to this point will not work that way anymore. It's not like pay and you'll get more features. It's pay and you'll get the current features that you have. And then, we'll add some in the future as well, but you have to pay to even continue to play. You pay for upgrades, pay for new stuff, but you already charged me $400. So I should at least get to have the product in its current state. Don't even give me any more firmware updates or anything like that. But to shut me down, I think that's wrong. And I think that I would not be surprised if we start to see more sort of Robin Hood-like groups and figures. And I don't mean that horrible investment company. I mean, the classic Robin Hood figures who come in and figure out ways to kind of like what's happened with Pebble, where the Pebble Watch, kind of went away, and then they've had developers who came along and said, we're going to show you how to continue to use your Pebble, even though Pebble is no longer around. And there are some smart security cameras that no longer connect to its original servers, but there are ways to flash the the little drive on the smart cam and basically set up your own personal server. Those abilities to continue to use the products. If there's anything that makes me want to understand coding and networking even more and get more into it, it's that. Because I've got several products I can think of that no longer connect or no longer work in the way that they originally did, that I would love to, dig into and be able to use all of the aspects of them. Or maybe it's just a company that I don't want to be a part of. And despite that, I've got a camera that has a webcam in it, or has a camera in it and can connect to Wi-Fi. Let me take this and use it how I want to, as opposed to, having to connect with a Nest system. I look at this thing all the time and I'm like, I would love to use this great cam. This is just a Nest cam. Okay. I would love to, use this in my own personal system, just as a stripped down webcam. And I've got some other cameras that would be make for great security cameras, but I don't really like the company, or trust rather the company that it's connected to. And so to be able to do that, to be able to use them without that would be nice. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more of this, where pretty soon, whenever you're doing a search for, in this case, now I forget what it's called. Oh, Mellow. You do a Google search for Mellow sous vide machine, and then there's some project on GitHub that lets you basically hack your Mellow and use it how you want to use it. And how appropriate to say chef's kiss in this instance. I think that would be great, and I encourage it, frankly.
Well, if you do get into networking programming, let me know how that goes, because I'm pretty sure that's one of the worst types of.
Yeah. Even the people that are
nothing. It's smashing your head against the wall until it magically works. So,
if there's one thing I am good at, no, I kid. I don't think I'm really good at smashing my head against any walls. Well, folks, more sadness, more ends to things, more goodbyes. This time it is goodbye to Cortana. We have talked before on this show. I've talked before on Windows Weekly about the future of Cortana, and essentially, Cortana is becoming a productivity sidekick. And when I hear productivity sidekick, I think of Clippy. And that is kind of what's happening to Cortana in the future. Cortana is going to be a productivity assistant that helps you with, making Google Sheets and not Google Sheets, my God, Excel spreadsheets and Microsoft Office documents, and helps you, connect your calendar, your Outlook, and all of those kinds of things that, the Microsoft suite of products together, and is less about being a virtual assistant. And the writing has been on the wall for a long time, as has the actual sort of announcement that this was going to happen. But officially, Microsoft is shutting down Cortana, and that includes Cortana being shut down on iOS and Android apps. And what is really surprising to me, Mary Jo Foley probably has, and for folks who don't know, that is one of the panelists, co-hosts of Windows Weekly. And Mary Jo Foley has one of the only Harman Kardon Invoke speakers, I think, on planet Earth at this point. And every time I'm on the show, I'm always asking her about it. And they're going to end the Cortana support for it as well. So she officially won't be able to use Cortana on that Harman Kardon Invoke. And that's so sad.
Brutal. It
what
looks like the smalt thing. I was looking at the Kardon thing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like most people aren't surprised by this news. That the consumer-facing part of Cortana, I think it's smart strategically. Even Microsoft is just like, we're not going to compete in you playing music on your phone and things like that. The area that they work in is the productivity suite. I was actually thinking about just Xbox and the PC world that they're very embedded in. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of left out of this equation, even ironically, Cortana being specifically from Halo, which is always still just like a nerdy choice, because Siri and all the other ones aren't, I don't want to say them, but they didn't just choose a video game character. I don't know. It is always an odd choice and doesn't exactly resonate. So it's kind of not surprising, but it is. We were just talking last week about a robot coming back to life, and now one of the assistants is going away.
Oh,
she's evolved beyond the need for consumers. She's just going to slurp up your enterprise.
She is her. I never thought about it like that. That's funny. Way past beginning to feel. Now this is another interesting one because I learned about this product from Leo Laporte. It is a new app that Microsoft has launched called Family Safety, and its role is basically doing kind of what I was talking about earlier, where there was the product that does this. It's about giving parents control and understanding of their children's use of smart devices. So on top of just being, a way to control and maybe limit some of their child's activity, you can also do what you can do on iOS if you have a family sharing plan, which is a screen time report. So this lets you sort of see where your children are on a map. It lets you see their screen time and what apps they're using the most. Of course, this child whose name is Casper with a K, who looks like they might be 21, but somehow is supposed to be a child, plays Minecraft more than anything else. 7 hours and 11 minutes.
7 hours of Minecraft, but 1 hour of Xbox.
Is that per day?
It's last 7 days.
Oh, okay. Whew. That's a lot. If it wasn't. Yeah. I think this is cool, right?
Yeah. I think in the same realm, at first glance, I don't see why Microsoft needs to do a screen time thing, but then that's also just my bias again of if you have an Android phone and a Windows PC and an Xbox, all of those things are Microsoft based on some level, and just tracking across it and having awareness of your habits, I think, is the biggest. Parents obviously have the justifiable right to control their kids' screen time, but just having being able to see it yourself and have self-control and recognize what's bad about it. I will not share my screen time stats because it will be not great. Especially, I started putting it on Mac OS too, and been doing a lot of work. So it's like, I think my screen time average per day is close to their weekly screen time average, but not 15 hours, but definitely pretty high. So,
well, I think there's something to be said for having a larger company that is, because due to the fact that it's a large company, there are more eyes on the company, which in some cases, I'm not going to say that this works in every case, but in some cases means that the company is more likely to be held accountable and watched for accountability. To have a large company doing this feels better when I think about the data that has to be handed over versus, some random company. Because I think about some of my partner's family who use one of those apps that tracks family members, and I can't think of what it is, but there's there's a few big ones, and it's one of the big ones, and it's kind of wild, the level of detail. It pings the parent when the child's phone is below 15% battery. It buzzes based on when the child leaves a GPS bubble, and when they return to the GPS bubble. It's constantly tracking, which means it's constantly running down the battery on everybody's phones. It's kind of wild, the level of detail. And if you look at those companies' privacy policies, that's where it gets really concerning. And so I guess when I think about that, do I want this random company that, maybe there aren't as many independent audits and things like that being focused on them versus Microsoft or Apple or Google? Who do I want, kind of having access to that data? I guess it's Microsoft over the third party that I don't know about, I guess. Yeah. Right? Maybe. Do I want anyone to have this data? I guess not really.
Even Microsoft is coming back in a big way if they've got TikTok under their belt soon.
Oh, true.
Oh, man. That was not a move I expected in 2020. So.
Yeah, that is a whole nother story, right? I don't even know what to say about that.
I feel like it's not over yet, so let's wait to see how that plays out.
Yeah, let's watch how that one sort of shakes out. Let's talk about smart display games. If you've got a Google Smart Display, like your Google Nest Hub or the Google Nest Hub Max, Google has created some games for it, including what now I feel is kind of not such a great name, huh? Trivia Crack? Maybe not such a great name. But I love the idea of having visual games that one can play on these devices that are very visual. This started, I would say, with the Amazon Echo in the times before the screens, where you could play audio games. And, these were, what is it? It's sort of step-by-step kind of text-based adventures and trivia games and things like that. But now to do them with that display, I think is quite nice. So you can think of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Jeopardy. I don't know what categories Battle is, but that's apparently one of the options. And you can just say, hey, dear friend, let's play a game. And then it will give you some options for different games that you can play. And you can select one like Guess the Drawing, which that would be fun to play.
I'm interested, though, in I could see it being, especially Jeopardy, is just the kind of thing that you probably, I don't know, could just casually play and wouldn't want to sit down and do, and I don't know, just play for a few minutes kind of situation. I actually tried out the Netflix integration that we were talking about the other week.
Yeah.
And I put it up and I was like, oh, I've seen The Office 100 times before, so I don't want to watch this. And I was just like, I don't want to watch anything right now, which is, now that I finally got it, all of the stuff that I watch on Netflix is either gone or they're just not really coming out with new things, or I've seen it all recently and been binging way too much TV. So I was like, oh, thank God now that I have this feature so I can just not use it, which I feel like often happens a lot with tech. It's, man, I'm so upset that I can't get this. And then you get it. It's like, oh, it wasn't as nice as I wanted, so I didn't use it. And the engineers are over there like, oh, my God.
Yeah, that's fair. I've certainly had that moment as well where it's like,
it's outrageous that I can't do this.
Yeah. And it's like, what is the point? Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I love in theory, I guess, the ability to take more advantage of the screen that I have on this device, but it needs to be clean. I think it's a start. Needs to be quick.
Yeah, it's just these are part of all of the new media controls that they have just recently been able to implement. So all of these companies, I'm sure, are desperate for people to interact with their stuff right now. So they jumped right on it, but hopefully over time we can see more solid use cases and regular things that take what we learn from building these games and turn it into more useful daily activities.
Yeah.
And just have fun with them. That's
right.
Legit.
Exactly. Google and its AR efforts are always something worth noting. It's not, I think of AR Kit, but as a mainly an Apple user, but obviously not the only one. And there are some cool new features that Google has added so that if you have a device, so Google's version of AR Kit is called AR Core. And if you have a device that supports AR Core, then you can look up certain beetles or certain insects rather, which of course include beetles, and actually, see them in 3D space. And so this includes stuff like, let's see, the Atlas beetle, the cicada. There are multiple cicadas. The rhinoceros beetle, which is always a cool one to look at. The stag beetle, and a mantis. So you can look those up, you can pull them out and actually see them in 3D space. So I'm going to have to whip out the Pixel and check out these AR Core bugs. And it looks like I don't actually just have to whip out the Pixel because iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, iPhone 11 Pro Max, iPhone 10, I mean, all the way back through the iPhone SE supports ARCore. So, yeah, basically any device that has ARKit can support ARCore. And many of the Android devices, modern Android devices, support them as well. I love the Beetle is actually flying in the air too, which is really neat. So you can see it kind of flap its wings around and look at its structure. There's a little butterfly. That's very cool.
Yeah, these are neat. I still think, I mean, at first glance, having a giant bug in your living room is like, ugh, but getting a closer look at these things that you normally can't see up close is pretty neat. And it's always just good for kind of ambient discovery. When you search for something, it's like, oh, I can actually look at it in this room. I still always look for that on Amazon and rarely see it, but they do have a view in this room feature also. So it's cool. I think this is kind of, I want it to be so regular that it's boring and we just got to use this stuff more and actually get like little, I don't know, for the kid who loves Beatles, this is going to be like a game changer. So that's always
yes, that was me. I think I always thought bugs were the coolest. So I'm kind of jealous of the young folks now who get to experience this so easily, but excited for them. Obviously, I think this is really neat. Oh, look, it's little Timmy the beetle. Well, that was kind of weird. The fade was right where my eyes were, so it was like I was the beetle. Oh, wait.
Amazing. Do you one with the beetle, Mikah?
I feel one with the beetle. Let's see. Oh, you had talked about this. Why don't you tell us about YouTube doing yet another thing that is kind of just copping out instead of actually trying to come up with a solution?
Yeah, this is not good. And I honestly, I want YouTube to reverse their decision because YouTube is doing away with community uploaded captions, which is wild to me. They basically said that they see abuse through it. And a lot of people were complaining that because PewDiePie is a terrible person and people upload abusive things into his community doesn't mean that the millions and millions of people who use captions for accessibility needs should have a worse method of using it. Because right now you either have to, or soon you'll be able to only rely on either something you upload yourself. And I've looked into trying to add transcriptions or captions, and it's not at all easy. They barely even help you, or you have to do it in their tool manually, and it's pretty difficult. Or you can use the automatic one, which then says things wrong, essentially. And there's no option at all for anyone else to help. That was always a kind of a, honestly, like, feels like Google's like don't be evil thing is fully dead now. Even that of Google's whole thing in their existence as a company was about making information freely accessible on the internet. And people like this, it's like have a tool where anybody in the world can add captions to your video and help contribute to the greater cause. And instead they had some problems with it. And I guess the kings of machine learning aren't able to figure out how to fix this problem. Instead are just going to take it away and make it worse for all of the people who, there's many creators who are like, I've had every single one of my videos has been captioned by my community, and they're literally going to delete the captions too. And you have to download them and re-upload them. Yeah, so it's not.
I didn't realize
it's going to be entire. Oh no, okay. You can accept it'll stay there.
Oh, thank goodness.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be worse. But they're saying that you can't add anymore after that. But I think this is unacceptable. I think YouTube, it sounds like they just punted it. I've been tweeting about it multiple times because it's just not okay to take away accessibility features because you can't handle the way that you built it, or like having any sort of system for managing that abuse instead of just throwing in the towel. Like, you don't pull accessibility features. This is wild to see that YouTube is still doing this. I hope they change it before then, because I don't think this is the right solution.
Yeah, I think that I'm heartened by I would normally be heartened by the blowback, because it would make me go, wow, there are a lot of advocates out there. But time and time again, of specifically YouTube is so against its own community. It's to a next level, in my opinion. The level at which YouTube shows over and over again that it does not have its community's best intentions. It doesn't care about those. I don't know. It's wild to me that how often YouTube proves that it doesn't care, and there's always that, what is it, Team YouTube or whatever, where you'll see them make these statements about, oh yeah, we're listening, we blah blah blah, and over again, just nothing changes or nothing is improved. And on the rare occasion when something is listened to, it is only after hundreds of articles are written and thousands and thousands of people speak up about an issue. But outside of that, I think that YouTube has been community hostile for just so long, and it just continues to prove itself to be that way. But when you are the player in the space, when you are the monopoly, essentially, I don't use that term as a legal term because clearly there are other video platforms out there. But let's be real. If you were trying to... And
they're being investigated for it, so...
Yeah, if you're trying to share your videos online, YouTube is where... there are people whose careers are based around sharing videos on YouTube because that is the place to do it. And so, in long-term storage, I guess, and long-term viewing of video, and for as long as I've worked in the media space, YouTube has been one of those things that comes up in every meeting talking about the editorial aspects of a company. It's a huge, it is where you have to be. And so YouTube knows that, and it can make choices like this. And it's just a bummer.
I don't know.
What I mean? Like that, we have no power in this instance, because what are we going to do? Get everybody to go to Vimeo? That's not going to happen.
And that's I'm not going to stop talking about it. At least, like, I think that there's still 2 months, and their reasoning doesn't pass a bar of. They say that it is rarely used, and they don't examine why it's rarely used, because captions you're supposed to take the text and just put the timestamp next to it, and that's it. Like, they have the opportunity to make captions better. They have the ability to make it easier for people to get community contributions and improve them, to make it a collaborative feature where you can get submission from someone and verify whether it's true or not, and have that process improve instead of cutting it because you created an environment where this set of situations creates a result that is built like they built this tool. And so, I'm losing my thread because I'm upset, because it's still just the way, I don't know, it's them abdicating their responsibility for something that they created and taking away the tool that benefits people and is part of the community aspect of YouTube that isn't people. It's not YouTubers and then the algorithm and nothing on the other side. There's people who are watching your videos and people who contribute to your videos and make it better for people in their language, not just what people in Mountain View determine to be a good algorithm for determining what captions are. So it's unacceptable. And I think they need to reverse it. And I think they need to make the ability to make captions better and contribute from the community with machine learning. They're the kings of machine learning. There's no way that they can't figure this out, but they can figure out everything else for themselves. And it's just not a priority because it's not accessibility, because it's not popular, and Google can get away with that. And I just am not okay with that on so many different levels. So I am calling on YouTube to change their mind and to fix this and to reinstate it and keep it going and make it better for all of us. I think that's all I have to say.
There you go. Moving on. So there's always been this this conversation and this, I guess, theory about Amazon and its Echo devices. And for the longest time, you've heard this. I know that I certainly have, and I maybe even have used it myself to talk about the Trojan horse that is the Echo device and how it is a way to get Amazon's foot into your doorway and into your house. I'm messing up that metaphor, but anyway, the point is, we kind of have always assumed that Amazon was less concerned about the upfront money that it makes off of an Echo speaker, given that it gives Amazon a way to market products to you, to keep you interested in what Amazon has to offer. And if you take a more cynical but more reasonable, frankly, approach, a way to hoover up your data, as it were. And the conversation always surrounds the idea that the way that Amazon does that is by selling its Echo speakers at a loss, meaning that it costs more for them to make the Echo speaker than they charge for it, because in theory, then the company would be more likely to get one into your house and you would want to have it there. Well, Jeff Bezos says no, and Bezos, people, come on, says that it's not the case that that Amazon loses money on the Echo, but instead that, hey, if there's a promotion, one of those, if you buy this, we'll throw an Echo Dot in with it for free. We see you are interested in buying a toilet seat cover. Would you like an Echo Spot for free? Those promotions obviously result in lost funds. But outside of that, no. Bezos insists that they do make money off of the Echo. But this Verge article from Sean Hollister says that all that said, you should never buy an Echo at full price, because you can always find something like a $40 off sale, $1 promo, where you can get it for $1, free giveaway, or a buy one get one deal. At some point, you look online at Amazon and you see it available for sale at the full cost, and then you have a little sneeze because you got a little bit of dust in your nose and you look back and suddenly there's a sale available. So never buy them at full price, says Hollister, but instead you can usually find one for some sort of deal.
Yeah, especially, they have a chart from Camel, which, if people don't know, tracks price history so that you can see, so you don't suddenly pay $20 more for a product that's been around for 10 years. But they're saying it's almost on sale as often as it's not on sale. So pretty much, in effect, it is a loss leader for them a lot of time but it also makes sense. I was just going to say knowing Bezos, which I don't, but just historically, he likes to make money, and
no one old Jeffy.
It seems like they probably wouldn't produce a product that they actually lost money from at all times. So it's like just enough, and they can justify it as a business, and then also use it to undercut and get people into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I just die a little bit.
But yeah.
Exactly. But there's definitely lots of revealing information. Like, the other story is that Amazon literally bought Ring because they were a good brand and not because the technology itself is actually that interesting. Because, it does make sense at a certain point. it's just the same type of stuff that we have in other forms. And they had the large position of people even now don't know that Ring is an Amazon brand. And speaking of CES, I sort of avoided that booth because I kind of didn't care too much about it. I just think even Instagram got a major hand slap and now says Instagram by Facebook every time. So I think those types of relationships need to be more clear. It's like Amazon is benefiting from the fact that people already liked Ring, and now suddenly they like Amazon, quote unquote, but not really. They just scooped up the product. But that is how massive conglomerates like this operate. There was other fascinating stuff from those CEOs getting grilled by Congress. Even I think Apple specifically said, we acquire companies because we want to make them part of the iPhone. And as somebody who worked at a company that got acquired and became part of the iPhone, that wasn't immediately obviously they're gonna use it, but it's kind of fascinating to hear that they're like, we intend to put this into the phone if we buy it. So that's a pretty straightforward thing, as opposed to taking the technology. I don't know. Maybe maybe I just haven't heard it praised that way, but as opposed to buying a competitor to shut them down, I guess is the contrast. But Amazon is like, we just wanted this and it looked good, and put Ring on the Amazon shelf basically. So
yeah,
they did.
It's kind of scary.
They're making so much profit off those Echoes,
Yeah, exactly. Oh boy, all that extra dough. Yeah, and now I'm thinking about all the other things that Amazon owns, and it always gets depressing whenever I do that. I don't know. Let's move on now to the project this week, which is one that I wanted to talk about. I have been kind of, I don't know, I got inspired over the course of a few weeks, kind of adding different health factors to my automations. And so I think I probably twice now I've talked about putting an NFC tag on the blood pressure monitor that I have in order to, whenever I did take the blood pressure, I could tap my phone to it, and then I would be able to put that information into Apple's Health app. After that, I added an NFC tag to some medicine that I take as it's sort of a take when needed medication. And so I just needed to remember when I took it, when I didn't take it, and know, okay, well, either you can take it or you should not because you have already taken it, kind of thing. And then from there, let me grab them if I have them over here. From there, I realized, well, let's do some Foley. If I've got all of these NFC tags,
wow,
they just keep coming.
He's got about 45, maybe?
Yeah, probably something like that. If I've got all these NFC tags, then I might as well start using them for something. And so I kind of went a little buck wild and started to add them to different aspects of my, my setup. There are different things that they can be used for, and I like to keep track and monitor different aspects of my health, but oftentimes it's sort of an in the moment kind of situation and less a tracked, I guess, system. And of course it's better if you can keep track of it and add it to, historical workflow or historical data. And so not too long ago, I remember that there was a report about your blood oxygen content being, or is it? Yeah, I think that's what it's, blood oxygen content. Basically, the level of oxygen in your blood, how oxygenated your blood is one factor that can be an early look at symptoms of COVID-19. And so the idea is that for people who are in theory or by all accounts asymptomatic carriers of COVID-19, they may still show signs of COVID-19 based on the blood oxygen level. Because
is that oxygen saturation?
Thank you. Oxygen saturation. That's the word.
I'm looking at the Find Health Samples action in the Shortcuts app because
yes, and that's what I had to use. Yeah. And so the idea is that, there have been a few cases, well, actually several cases of folks who they thought they were fine, and then they went into the doctor and their lungs were just all sorts of messed up, and they just didn't realize it because, they weren't, Olympic athletes who are going out every day running. And so I knew that I wanted to, I have been using a thermometer to keep track of my temperature, my partner's temperature, just as a way to keep an eye on things, because he works in a job that requires interactions with the public, and they do, all the necessary aspects of protecting themselves, but it's only so much. And so I wanted to make sure that we both were aware should anything like that happen. And so because of that, your temperature obviously can be one aspect of that, but oxygen saturation is another one that, even if you're not showing a fever, can be a way that you do that. So the way that it works for anyone who's never used a pulse oximeter, it's kind of a clever idea. Your blood is more red when it is oxygenated, because you've got, red blood cells, and they the more oxygen there is in your blood, the more red your blood will be. And so me breathing in sends oxygen down into my lungs, and as those little oxygen molecules work their way, or I guess it's atoms, work their way through into your lungs and out through the cilia, it sort of brushes up against your the blood it's pumping through your circulatory system, and drops those little oxygen atoms into, I guess it is O2, so it'd be oxygen molecule, O2 into your blood, and then that's how your blood becomes oxygenated. And so the more red your blood is, the more red your blood is, then the more oxygenated you are. So this little thing has both a light and like an LED light and a sensor that can detect how red your blood is. So it's a little clip thing that goes over the tip of your finger. So if you've ever been in an emergency room or been in the doctor's office for a prolonged period of time, then you may have had one of these on your finger. And so it can determine your pulse, because obviously there's going to be sort of a push out and a retraction of the oxygen or the blood in your finger. And so it uses that to determine your pulse, but then it can determine your oxygen level. So yeah, this sends out a little light as well as a little sensor that can detect how red your blood is, and then uses those two things to give you an estimate of your oxygen saturation. So adding that then to my workflow of, I want to be able to log a temperature setting and log an oxygen saturation setting at once, so those two things can combine and be tracked at the same time. So it's been a really kind of fun thing for me, at least, to take what was once a more involved process and more like, I got to pop open this, I got to pop open that, I got to do this and do that. And then finally I get all the information plugged in, and I can take all of that and just make it happen automatically. It makes me more likely to log that information than I would if I had not, set that up. So I continue to look at ways to automate health tracking. But I would love to hear folks out there who listen to our show. Send in some, you can send in video, record on YouTube, and set it as unlisted. Send us a link. Twitter, STT at twit.tv. Yeah, post it on Twitter if you want to reply to us. audio, or just, of course, text is just as fine. I want to hear how you are using NFC tags in your own automations, because it's not just health, and it's not just iOS, and it's not just Android. There are all sorts of ways to use NFC tags in your setup. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there and inspiration there for cool ways of automating your system using NFC. You know, I think NFC has kind of had its ebbs and flows, same as QR codes, but NFC maybe even more. Say that. Where I think NFC tags are super cool again. And so I would love to hear what you folks are out there doing, because I've just been, like I said, sticking them to everything. They're not that expensive now. I think, Matthew, your article on your site was what I used to for the recommendation. It's the Times Key NFC stickers round is what I ended up getting. And it's 45 of them for, well, let's see.
And even if people don't use NFC tags, if there are things you would want to use or aren't sure if it's possible, or I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, send us your health problems. And I was like, I don't think there's some issues with that communication, but of like things you might want to track too, because like, what's your peripheral perfusion index, Mikah? Is that, I'm surprised you don't have a product for that yet. But I don't even
know what that means. Peripheral?
It's the ratio of the pulsatile blood flow to the non-pulsatile or static blood in peripheral tissue. Obviously, I wasn't looking after the last to read.
How did I not know that?
But I think that data is interesting, especially. I mean, I can just imagine if you, God forbid, I don't know. I'm not even going to say that. But if you had to use that data for some reason, just having it say, oh, by the way, I have my temperature logged and my oxygen average saturation for the last 2 years or something, they're going to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like that's, I am just wondering with the doctors who are like, thank God that you have all this stuff.
So that reminds me, I was going to talk about this last week, but I didn't end up doing it because I changed my pick of the week. But I have an endoscope that I bought on Amazon. And what it lets you do, it's basically a little tiny USB camera on the end of a stick that has LED lights around it. And the reason that you would use one of these is, if you kind of were curious about your hearing may have changed, or there was something, wrong with sinuses or something like that. This lets you essentially look inside of your ear or your sinuses. You could also use it
like $20 on Amazon. What?
I know.
This is like the surgery tool.
I'll send you the link to the one that you should get, because there are some that are. I took the time to look for one that I thought was
disgusting,
good.
By the way,
I'm sorry, so it can be really gross, and I don't recommend it's sort of a private thing. If that I had no interest in having my partner sitting over my shoulder while I was using it, because it literally I was using it to look inside my ears. I saw this video. I think it was a BuzzFeed video, and these young folks went to an ear doctor, an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and they all had their ears looked at with an endoscope. It's technically an otoscope. And they all had their ears looked at with an otoscope, and it showed they had different levels of earwax, and your race can play a factor in your earwax. Your DNA in general can play a factor in your earwax. And there was one person who had just loads of earwax in their ears, and so they had kind of a cleaning. And then there was one person who had very little. And here's how I feel about things. I am a person who is bothered by the fact that I have this meat sack, and I don't understand everything that there is to understand about it. And I know that I will die not understanding everything there is to understand about it, but I would like to understand and see and make sense of as much of it as possible before I die. So the idea that I would die without seeing inside of my ear whenever it's so easy to, rectify that. Obviously I had to do this for me. Like that's just how I work. And so of course, I am being very clear here. This is not something that I can recommend at all or anything like that, because you have to be careful. You have to make sure that you've got to sanitize properly, and you don't want to poke your eardrum out or anything like that. So don't go and do this if it's not something that you feel comfortable with. But anyway, I did this, and I happen to be on the sort of light end of the spectrum, as it were, where my ears had sort of the normal amount of wax according to this video. And, I could see my eardrum, and it was so cool seeing that tympanic membrane and seeing exactly how it looked. Yeah. And then like making a yawning action and seeing the tympanic membrane move a little bit. But all of that is to say, you're talking about the doctor having information available. Remember how I said that I had my eustachian tube was all messed up and I couldn't hear out of my ear. Well, I have this otoscope that I'd gotten a long time ago, and I had looked in my ear after this had happened, and I didn't notice anything about my ear that was, because the issue is in the middle ear and farther down, because essentially the eustachian tube connects your throat into your middle ear. And so it was all back there behind the tympanic membrane, something that I couldn't see with the otoscope. But I hopped on the call with my doctor, because most of the appointments now, they have to happen on in video unless you have to go in for some reason. Then you've got to set up that specially. And I used my Ecamm Live system so that I could switch between cameras. And I said to my doctor, and of course I sanitized it because you're using it in your ear, and if you're going to use it somewhere else, then you need to have it cleaned first. But I said, this is really strange, I'm sure, but and of course, I had my microphone and everything all set up. So the doctor was kind of like, are we doing a podcast here? And I was like, well, that's kind of what I do for a living. So, yeah. But I said, kind of weird, but I'm a consumer technology journalist. So I happen to have like weird tech, and I can actually show you my sinuses if you want to see them. Because normally they would have an otoscope that they would use at the doctor's office. And she's like, no way, really? And I was like, yeah. So I, hit the button on my Elgato Stream Deck, and pulled up the square and said, okay, here we go. And I started to go up into my sinuses, and she was able to look in there and see, oh yeah, there's some swelling in there. You probably have a sinus infection. Right? And so it's like, just consumer.
You all have to buy now your own medical tools, and then you just Skype with the doctor, and they're like, just stick it up there off to the side. You're good to go.
You can't use your FSA to purchase it, which is unfortunate. But maybe I could convince my insurance to cover it. But anyway, I thought it was really fun, and she was like, "Thank you so much for showing me that. This is so fun." That's cool. And so it was a good moment in terms of her being able to see into my sinuses where normally she wouldn't be able to, because normally they're just like, touch your face. Can you get close to the webcam and show me your throat? And that kind of thing. And it's like, it doesn't work very well. So for her to be able to see in there was really cool. So yeah, I don't know. I try to have that information for myself, but also if a doctor needs it at any time, then they too can have that information. So yeah.
It's fascinating. It is amazing too that there's $10 ones that you can get from Wish, and there's one that comes with a little screen, so you can like have your own little setup. And and some of them have tools that you can use for cleaning. I think this is super cool, and there are different examples they show. If your dog if you're checking for like an ear infection or something like that, this could be very helpful to see into the ear, because it's got LED lights all the way around the camera. Obviously, I would recommend buying a separate one if you're going to use it on your pets than what you would use on yourself. Even after a nice sterilization, I still think I would be a little sketched out by that. But using the same one, I mean, so it was super cool. And it was very helpful in my situation because the doctor was able to get more information. Doctors are not interested, rightfully, in prescribing
antibiotics unless they're absolutely necessary. And that's a good thing. And so no complaint there. But because she was able to see what was going on, then she was pretty certain that I had a sinus infection. And so giving me that medicine when I needed it, clearly now that I can hear out of my ear again, that was what I needed. So, yeah.
That's fascinating.
There's all of that. So let's move on to our picks of the week. Matthew Cassinelli, what have you got for us?
I feel like you should go first because yours is more related than mine. No,
I'll do mine really quick. I, for a while, have had the Kinsa smart ear thermometer. And one of the things that I noticed with the Kinsa smart ear thermometer was that it just gave really quite varied readings. The problem is, so the device is meant to, it goes in your ear and it has a little infrared sensor on the end. And so it is looking at the temperature. It's meant to be looking at the temperature of your tympanic membrane, your eardrum. And that is, we think a very good way to determine the temperature of a person's internal temperature. But if it's off a little bit, if you focus it sort of at the skin inside of your ear, then it can be a higher temperature. And if you focus it sort of down and just in that ear space, then it can be a different. I mean, it was just kind of all over. And so I decided, you know what, I want to have a more accurate internal temperature if I'm going to be tracking this all the time. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to find something that both provided a good and consistent and low, margin of error temperature reading that was also Bluetooth enabled, meaning that it could automatically share my information with my phone and keep track of it. But I went on the Wirecutter and looked at their different recommendations, and there's a device. It's called the iProven, thermometer, and it is both it's both an ear thermometer and a forehead thermometer. So it's got a button that says head and a button that says ear, and if you use it on your head, you press down the button and essentially just hold down the button and run it across your forehead and then let go. And it gives you a temperature. And then
what's your score?
That is about, what's the word? That is a somewhat accurate. It's more like I would call it like an overview temperature, but not an incredibly accurate temperature. So then if you want a more accurate temperature, you can take off the cap, and then it's got the ear thermometer. And of course you put that into your ear, face it towards your eardrum, and then you hit the ear button and it gives a more accurate temperature. So yeah, you can get both a more basic temperature that's, less invasive, I guess. And for kids especially, that could be helpful. But if you're wanting a more accurate representation, then you can do it in the ear. And testing it against the Kinsa, I was quite impressed with the consistency and accuracy, where instead of, mere moments later, the temperature has changed dramatically. And it's only because I, moved the thermometer itself just a little bit. This felt far more accurate and was more consistent. So yeah, it is a little, not a little expensive. It's rather expensive. I think you can get it on Amazon for, what is it? $59.99. So yeah, I mean, $60 is not cheap for a thermometer, but it was with the, knowing the accuracy was there, and knowing that this is something that I could use for, a long time as a thermometer. I was happy with purchasing it for sure. And also it is FSA, HSA approved. So I was able to use that to cover the cost of the thermometer.
Yeah,
so yeah,
makes sense. So that's just simple and easy. And the forehead thing is just kind of like quick scan to see. It's like, no, you don't have a fever if you're just kind of like wondering, versus needing to track it specifically.
Yeah.
And so this one doesn't have Bluetooth, you said?
Yeah,
but
no Bluetooth. And one of the things too with the Kinsa is that they seem to be a lot more available than some of the other ones. The company solely focused on manufacturing thermometers and has been for a long time. So, if you are struggling to find a thermometer, you could probably get a Kinsa a little bit easier. And I think it's less expensive too, which is helpful. But for a thermometer that has a sort of proven track record for being accurate and offers multiple options of doing a thermometer for both kids and adults, this one I've been really impressed with. What about you?
Mine is not in the same realm. I'm going to call it digital health and well-being. Okay. I've been playing Grand Theft Auto 5, which came out in 2013 and is on many levels, horrible game. So content mature warning, I would say, of anything. But part of what also made me just think about this was the ongoing presence of digital spaces in our lives and the ability to go on a drive somewhere outside of your home. And I did that this weekend in Grand Theft Auto. Not that I don't know, like obviously there's a lot of actual health ways that you can take care of yourself, but sometimes just having fun. And I've been replaying the storyline because it's just like a fun, entertaining story that I know is consistently good, unlike the random Netflix shows that you start and you're just like, what is going on? But it's a lot of fun. And the story is in the New York Times about executives who are having meetings while doing a bank heist instead of a traditional meeting, because it's just something more interesting. And it's a follow-up to on somebody a couple months ago was having their design roundtable in Red Dead Redemption while they were around a campfire and things like that. So it is pretty funny. It's a fascinating space. And another thing I was tweeting on Sunday morning, I was playing again, and I love taking a cab in that game. You can just order a cab and then your person gets in the back and you ride to your destination. And part of it is that it's the same in Red Dead Redemption where you can set it in cinematic mode and then your guy just automatically rides his horse along the path that you set. And I just set down the game and walked away and got a drink and came back and was chilling as my cab was going along the freeway and stuff like that. So it's kind of always a funny, like you can see fun interaction stuff happen and then just kind of chill and have a more relaxed experience before maybe you go on a GTA 8 as alternative ways of entertaining yourself if you'd like as well. That sounds worse than I thought, rules. But it's just stealing cars and driving around and
stopping at all the stop signs, following the one-way traffic rules, sort of playing it like The Sims.
It's like working an 8-hour day to earn your money as opposed to a bank heist where you make $250,000.
I go buy a mask and wait, this is escapism. Never mind. I don't do that. Oh boy. Do they have thermometers in Grand Theft Auto?
I don't think so. One of the things that's kind of fascinating is that it doesn't feel very dated because a lot of the, I want to say like social issues that they address, I wouldn't say have been resolved in any way. Like a lot of things that they're talking about a lot of the game is the interaction with like the police and things like that, or just internet culture and things like that. That still, it feels like they were pretty on the ball, and that was 2013, so it's still pretty relevant today. It doesn't have the crossplay thing, which a lot of games have now, which does make it fun because you can kind of play with any of your friends, and I'm surprised they haven't since the game's been trucking for 7 years now, but I don't know. They've clearly made some money off of it, but that's fun. Video games are a very legitimate way to spend time and relax and help yourself in stressful times. So I recommend it if you guys haven't played.
Cool.
Maybe not specifically GTA, but just games.
Yeah, just games. Just play some games. It'll be fine. Folks, we have reached the end of another episode of Smart Tech Today. As I mentioned before, email us. It's stt@twit.tv, where you can send your questions. You know what? Next week, we need to do some questions because I just remembered that we had a question from a listener that I sent to you and you wanted to address that. So you know what? I'll make sure that next week we address some of the questions and feedback. So if you have not asked a question yet, send that in because we'll make sure that it gets covered on the next episode. stt@twit.tv. And remember, you can send video, audio, or just text. But if you have project requests, project help that you need help with, automation help, whatever it happens to be, send that in. And even if you've sent it in before, go ahead and send it in again. I don't mind getting it again, and that way it'll definitely be at the top of the feed there, so I can make sure to see it. We of course record the show live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 2300 UTC. So you can tune in then and watch it live with us. But even if you don't want to tune in live, that's fine. Just get the show as soon as it's out, when it's ready. You can subscribe. You just head to twit.tv/STT, and you can subscribe to the show in both audio and video formats, no matter what you use. So YouTube, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, doesn't matter. We are there and ready for you to subscribe and get it when it's available. Matthew Cassinelli, if folks want to follow you online and check out your work, where do they go to do that?
I want people to, I'm launching something, and for Smart Tech listeners, if you are curious and you want to, I'm just curious also to see who replies to this and if people listen to this part at the end. But if you want to check it out, send me a direct message on Twitter, and I will. But if I get a lot, I will. I won't have everybody, but I want to give some people early access. So send me a message.
You heard it here first, folks. You can get early access. That's exciting. You can follow me on pretty much all the social media networks at Mikah Sargent, or head to chihuahua.coffee, chihuahua.coffee, which has links to the different stuff that I do online. I think that does it. And it's time to say goodnight to all of your smart assistants. Good night and goodbye, Cortana.
Good morrow. Oh, man, Cortana. Oh, you slid that in. That made me sad.
Be sure to check out the other shows on the network, like my other show, Hands On Wellness. I love to share different tips and tricks that's going to help you get a better grasp on your personal wellness. Just go to twit.tv/how and subscribe now.